Hello everybody, here we are today talking about three teams that have already had better seasons than what they had last year and just kind of getting into all that. But before we get started, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or hockey, whatever the case may be. Being said, let's get on into it. So I will kick off this video too by kind of saying there will be teams that end up having better years than what they had last year. But these three teams kind of stand out because they've already been able to pass their points totals from last season, and they did it in pretty quick fashion. Multiple teams that we'll be talking about here didn't make the playoffs last year, so that kind of helps explain it. But at the end of the day, I think some of these teams do deserve to kind of get their flowers in this sense about seeing results in the standings and being able to say, well, we actually saw those results in front of us and maybe see a better path for us in the future. And one, if not two of these teams will actually make the playoffs this year. So I do apologize if there is another team that has already done better than what they did last year and I didn't catch it. That would be my mistake. But I think it's just these three. So kicking it off alphabetically, you have the Anaheim Ducks. The Ducks last season finished with 59 points in 82 games played. And the season prior to that actually had 58 points in, of course, 82 games. So they improved by 1 point, but it still was a really disappointing year. And in this sense, this season was much better because they were able to get there much faster. I think it was 58 games that it took them to match their point total. They currently have 63 points in 64 games played. So nearly playing, again, 500 hockey and looking like a much better team than before. I do think that this team, I didn't really expect a lot this year. And as the season kind of kept going along, I thought there'd be a lot of the wheels falling off moments. You have Cronin that's not very well liked, not only within the organization, but outside the organization, and he is their head coach. You have a lot of guys that are worried about maybe could I possibly go out there and get traded. Not just Zegras and not just Gibson, but other players too that are especially veterans. It could be thinking maybe I will be playing for a different team come playoff time and wondering, what about relocating my family, or what about trying to figure out where I'll be exactly in terms of conference or division or whatever. Those are all things that could have held the team back, as well as youth on the blue line. Not just Owen, not just Pavel, but you've got Lacombe that I think is in his third season with the team on the blue line. Overall, just very young in that category and very hopeful, but still, you could say, are we ready just yet? But I think there's been a lot of promising storylines along the way with Lucas Dahlstall, who is a younger goalie that's been having a good year. Sometimes there's been games that have been pretty ugly, but that's okay. John Gibson seemingly never going to get traded. I think at this stage he's going to get his number retired there with them, with the way that it seems like he will finish out his career there. It's kind of a joke. But anyway, in that regard, you've had a good tandem. You've had Troy Terry, who's been a good storyline here, looking to have his fourth straight season with 50 points or more. And let's see if I can get this right, because I was really getting tongue-tied and had to go back and re-record this as I'm getting stumbled here. It would be his third season in 4 years getting 60 points or more. I believe that is what I was trying to say originally, but just couldn't, for whatever reason, get those words out of my mouth. And there's been some other things that have been really positive as well, too. They are spending way less time in the box than they were last year when they led the league in average time in the box, on the PK, of course, too. And they, I think, led the league in minor penalties last season. I don't really know. Just a lot of things weren't going really well for them. And they've also been able to avoid those long losing streaks that have been kind of synonymous with the season going off the rails. I think their longest losing streak this season is 4 or 5 games. So all in all, kind of an interesting storyline here for the Ducks, as maybe they are better than what we expected and they didn't really trade off a lot of pieces. We were thinking in the future, if some of these guys continue to grow and thrive, and maybe if Gibson just kind of sticks around and they do have a good 1-2 punch there with a younger guy, an experienced guy, maybe the Ducks can be a team that really rises. I'm very excited to see them in the offseason, especially about what do they want to do to try to make this team better and how aggressive do they need to be, or how aggressive do they feel in terms of them being close to the playoffs, because they're there right now in the hunt, but I don't think they're going to get there this year. So Anaheim, I'm hoping, are able to finish the season strong. I do think they've lost 4 of the past 5, but if they could get close to that 35 win mark, it would again be a great year for them, as you'd be winning close to half your games. And I know we view it more in the points terms, but getting 35 or 36 wins in an 82-game season, in my eyes, is a good thing. Now we have the Columbus Blue Jackets, and they are interesting because last year they had 66 points in 82 games, and that was a step up from their season prior. This year they only needed, I believe, 59 games to match that point total, though. So this is marking a third straight year of improvement for the team and getting them into territory that's a little bit more respectable, not the high 50s, not the mid 60s, but probably somewhere in the 80s, maybe even the low 90s. For points, and this is overly impressive considering the start of the year, where they could have said for a variety of reasons they were going to probably have another down season. They had a new head coach, starting away that demanded a trade, and most importantly, they had a leader, a true leader in their locker room, pass away unexpectedly in Johnny Gaudreau, The potential for this season to be another year outside of the playoffs was obviously right in front of us, but they were able to rebound and have an incredible season and one of their more exciting seasons in a long time, to be honest. They have got 5 guys that have scored 20 goals or more this season, and we still have a good ways to go. And that's even more impressive when you realize the fact that I believe the oldest player on that list is Zach Werenski. I believe he is currently 27 years old right now. A lot of those guys are like 23, 24 years old. So you see maybe a core of your goal scorers that are not even near their 30s, and a spot where you are suddenly winning a lot of games. And kind of circling back to the whole Zach Werenski thing, Zach is not only setting all-time franchise records where he picked up the most assists in franchise history, but he's also having a career year after building up to what's been really good last year and then this year after dealing with some of the injuries, after getting that big extension. And Werenski has just been a fun storyline to cover this year, especially for a team that's been really fun, where they have thrown together, 4-game win streak here, a 5-game win streak here, and are looking like a team that probably could make it in. I think they're going to make it. I feel pretty confident. I know the Sens, I say yes or no, they're really streaky, but I think the Jackets are going to be one of those teams out east. In regards to this, I think they could have a really big rise as well, especially compared to a team like Anaheim that is losing that momentum a little bit. I know the Jackets might seemingly be losing a little bit of momentum themselves, but this is a team that can score a lot of goals, and this is a side that we would probably feel like are in a better spot than Anaheim in terms of the timeline. They feel much closer to being a playoff team. And if they make it this year, then again, you could say, well, they are quite literally a playoff team compared to Anaheim, which would probably fall out of the mix as the season goes along. And for the Blue Jackets, this is where I'm very, very excited for them. Next season, obviously handle your contracts and whatnot, but they have a lot of projected cap space, I believe. And if you make the playoffs this year and then say, well, we had a really good year and we want to try to build off that, maybe they can spend a little bit more money over the course of the offseason and be one of those teams that continues to rise, where you say, in the Metro, is this their division in the coming years to go out there and win it? Does Washington maybe take a step back? Is Carolina going to be more of a loss as they just can't seem to find their star? Is a team who's currently in third? Yes, New Jersey. New Jersey may pose a threat, but the Devils aren't as good as what they could be. Maybe the Jackets are able to jump up and do something crazy like win a division title after just, making the playoffs possibly this year. The Jackets have me very excited for what this season could be. And then you have the Washington Capitals, who are a team that is different from the other two, as they're the only one out of this list that made the playoffs last year. They had 91 points in 82 games played. This season, they needed just 64 games to pass that, as they had, 92 points at 64 games. Obviously a great thing there. And it's kind of impressive, too, considering how many points they had last season and how big of a gap there is, I think, compared to teams like Anaheim, where it's like, 59 points last year compared to Washington this year having 91, or previously last year having 91, and then now having, 92 or 94. They are in a different category. Not only are they looking like a team that could, make the playoffs, they are looking like they'll win their division, might win the President's Trophy. Wayne Gretzky's record might fall to Alex Ovechkin, and they could possibly try to win just their second championship in franchise history. This would be a great season for the team, but last year I feel like was kind of the start of it in that regard, and this offseason has just been great. This season has been great, and you're hoping that there is more to come. Now, there is kind of talk about what's happening in Alex Ovechkin in the future, as there's reports that maybe next year is his final year. If that's the case, obviously it's going to be tough, but for the moment, you know that you probably have Alex for this playoff run and then next season, and you have a team that has been able to rack up a lot of wins and be even better than what they were last year and be much more dangerous. This is a side that can certainly score a lot more goals than what we saw last year, and I am just thrilled to see what plays out here for the Capitals, as they do stand out, and they are a team that doesn't seem to fit the mold of being one of those top-tier sides in a lot of ways, like your teams like Dallas and whatnot. So I'm hoping maybe they can be the underdog top-tier team in the league. Now, again, we'll probably be talking about Washington in a video tomorrow, so I didn't want to harp on them too much. But as you can see, 3 teams that are already having better seasons, already, kind of wrote that in the books, if you will, that we are better than what we were last year, with still a lot of hockey left to play, and that is really promising. And that's kind of what the point of today's video was, to illustrate about some teams that maybe have more success than what they've been accustomed to in recent years, especially last season. I think it's a good sign, not just for these teams, but for fans of the game, to say our team could be that next team. Maybe we could be the next Washington. Maybe we could be the next Columbus. Maybe we could be the next Anaheim. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's all attributed to one team jumping up into 120-point range. More about just saying we've been bad for a while, we can be this, or we've been all right for a while, we can be this, or now we are a side that have been a playoff team but haven't been able to do much. Now we can possibly be a contender, and I think especially for teams like Buffalo, kind of promising to imagine, oh, well, maybe this is something that could happen to us in the future. And then honorable mention to some of those teams that are at the bottom right now that are working their way towards having much better years. San Jose is probably going to be a team that smashes their point total by the end of the season. Chicago probably will kind of fit in that category as well too. And as much doom and gloom as you hear about these two teams, of course, the Sharks being the worst side in the league and the Blackhawks saying, well, is Connor Bedard going to be the superstar in year 3? I still think we kind of have to take those things in perspective and talk about where we could possibly see these teams headed. So anyway, kind of a off the rails video in my regard, as again, I'm not sure if you heard during the video, at points my voice seemed to be really scratchy. I think it's the weather, man. But anyway, what are your thoughts on these 3 teams, and what are some of the teams that really stick out to you in this category of where they probably will definitely be sides that are better than what we saw last season? Let me know down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe. Have a great night. And go hockey, all right. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.